Hey everybody, another week has passed, and that means it's time once again for me to open up this vault of useless information and bring you another edition of Jack's Interesting Facts. Now this week, I'm not going to just give a bunch of random facts about a topic, but I'm going to talk about a topic that I, in and of itself, find to be an interesting phenomenon. And that topic is the Mandela Effect. Now, for those of you that have never heard about this, what the Mandela Effect is, it's basically where several people, tens of thousands or more, tend to remember something happening or being a certain way, when in reality, it never was that way. And there's proof to show that it was never that way, though we all continue to remember it that way. It's called the Mandela Effect because it was named after Nelson Mandela, because several people believe that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s. They say they remember seeing his memorial service on television and his wife giving a speech, but in reality, Nelson Mandela lived until he was released from prison in 1990, became president of South Africa, and died in 2013. Yet so many people remember it a different way. Now, my personal experience with the Mandela Effect is that one day I was driving my daughter Anna to school, and she started talking about this. I'd never heard of it. And she told me about a few things that some people think it's the Berenstain Bears or the Berenstain Bears, and there's all this confusion. Nothing really jumped out at me or struck me hard until she said that it was a fact that Mickey Mouse never wore suspenders. And I said, obviously, that's incorrect. I remember having a Mickey Mouse doll that I bought at Disney World, and he always had red shorts and yellow suspenders. And I started looking for pictures of this, and of course, he has never worn suspenders. I couldn't believe it. I remember even putting his thumbs through and holding the suspenders out, but apparently he never has. So we're going to look this week on Jack's Interesting Fact at some interesting Mandela effects, at least some that I find interesting. And since we've already mentioned Disney, I'm going to stick with one of the really kind of mainstream Mandela effects to start out, and that is with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Now, we all remember the famous line from this movie, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all," correct? Well, as it turns out, no, that line was never said in the movie. In fact, the line that was said was "Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all." But yet, so many people seem to remember it as "Mirror, mirror," including myself. Now, Disney, even in some of their toys, in a recent movie, "Mirror, mirror," has even misquoted themselves, which is incredibly strange. Now, sticking to movies, Risky Business. There's a famous scene in this movie where Tom Cruise comes sliding in his underwear, and part of the Mandela Effect is some people say they remember him wearing a white shirt, and now it's pink with white stripes. Now, personally, that didn't really impact me much. But what did was the fact that he no longer wears sunglasses, black sunglasses. Now, I remember this so specifically, as many other people do. Now, what's even weirder, if you go on YouTube, by the way, you can look up any of these. I'm not making these up. These are facts. If you go on YouTube, you can see the original trailers for Risky Business. You can see the scene of the movie, no sunglasses. Yet, there is one clip that says original dance scene from Risky Business with sunglasses, and then he slides in, there's the sunglasses. It looks so perfect, but yet in the movie now, if you watch the movie, he does not have sunglasses, and they were never removed. It was supposedly never filmed this way, even though we all remember it this way. Now, shifting from movies to television and looking at a specific commercial, I very specifically remember Ed McMahon working for Publishers Clearinghouse. He was the host of Star Search. He was Johnny Carson's sidekick. And everyone seems to remember him showing up with these big, giant checks for $1 million and telling people that they won Publishers Clearinghouse. You remember this, right? It never happened. Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. He never made these commercials. Publishers Clearinghouse has gone on record saying he never worked for them. Try to find one of these commercials, a video on YouTube. They don't exist because apparently they were never made, even though we all seem to remember them. It's crazy. Now, often I stick to things like music and movies and television, but I want to vary a little bit with the Mandela Effect, and I'm actually going to look at some of history. Now, right off the bat, this was called the crime of the century. A man broke into the house of the Lindberghs and they stole the Lindbergh baby. Now, I remember he was kidnapped. I remember hearing this story in school, being taught it when I was younger. And what I remember is that the Lindbergh baby was kidnapped and he was never found. It was the crime of the century. They never found out what happened to him. Well, the reality now is different. Now, not only was the Lindbergh baby found, he was found about 2 months later, dead. They captured the man who had killed him, and he was brought to trial and executed. I don't know about you, but I don't remember it this way. And tens of thousands of other people very specifically remember the Lindbergh baby never being found and it still being an unsolved mystery to this day. But that is no longer the case anymore. I don't get it. And sticking with history, and actually looking a little bit at New York City. Now, this is a weird one to me. This is about the Statue of Liberty. Now, let me ask a question. Is the Statue of Liberty on Liberty Island or Ellis Island? Now, personally, I never really knew the name of the island it was on. I've never been to the Statue of Liberty, so this didn't hit me a whole lot. But the reality is that nowadays they say it's on Liberty Island. It's in New York Harbor on an island of its own called Liberty Island. Here's the problem. Several people remember it being on Ellis Island. What's even crazier about this one is there's pictures and videos showing the Statue of Liberty in two different places. Some people see it on Ellis Island, some people see it on Liberty Island, but the pictures are there, the videos are there. Even more, a coin was released with the Statue of Liberty in 1986, and the coin, United States Mint says that the Statue of Liberty is on Ellis Island, even though it's on Liberty Island. How could we all make this mistake? Now, another thing about the Statue of Liberty that's crazy is a lot of people say they remember going up and visiting the torch, going up to, up into the torch when they climb up into the statue. Again, I've never been there, so no personal experience here, but now they say that the Statue of Liberty's torch has been closed off since 1916 and that nobody has been able to go up there because of structural damage that was done during the Black Tom Island explosion. Now, what is the Black Tom Island explosion, you ask? Well, that, to me, is the most interesting of the Mandela Effects at all that I've heard. The Black Tom explosion is a point in history in 1916. Now, I was always taught that we got into World War I after the sinking of the Lusitania. I remember this very specifically. I was taught it in school, in history class. It's not the case anymore. Now it's because of the Black Tom Island explosion. Now, what this was in New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey, there's an island in New York Harbor called the Black Tom Island. This was a small ammunitions place and had, munitions, all kinds of things on there to give small guns and ammunition to troops and to different people. Well, what happened was Germans went on this island and set fires. It was a terrorist attack. They set fires all over this island, setting off a huge explosion. The explosion was so large that it measured between 5.0 and 5.5 on the Richter scale. The the tremors could be felt as far as Maryland and Philadelphia. And it also it blew out every window for a 25-mile radius in New York City. Yet nobody seems to have ever heard of this. It's the first terrorist attack on American soil. Now, I always thought the first time American soil was attacked was Pearl Harbor, but no, it was in 1916 now on the Black Tom Island. And also, we talked about the first major terrorist attack when 9/11 happened, and also the fact that they both occurred in New York. Why was nobody comparing 9/11 to the Black Tom explosion? Why was nobody mentioning it? I never heard it mentioned once. And even further, this makes this kind of crazy, is if you look for videos or stories about the Black Tom Island on the internet, you can't find any that were ever recorded until about 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. So how could this have happened in 1916, but nobody has ever heard of it? Now, I don't personally know what is causing the Mandela Effect. I can't say what is real, what isn't, what would cause it, what didn't. But what I can say is it is a fact that several people, tens of thousands, if not more, are remembering things in a way that they never actually happened. Sometimes it seems like things have changed, history, movies, whatever it is. But whatever it is, I find it interesting. Now come back next week and we'll talk some more about some other Jack's interesting facts. See you then.